I really don't know. I don't know if you have any idea about that, but maybe, like, again, what can be the role of Africa in helping them become acceptable, homegrown, different face of Islam? I haven't thought about that issue.
If I can just quickly say, yeah, Peter, you're right. The problem with the progressive Muslims, because of this faith that we talked about here in the West. But having said that, the progressive Muslims themselves say, they don't need your help, they don't need my help. They simply are Muslims who are trying to articulate a different view of Islam. Now, even within the African context, I have met Nigerian Muslims in many conferences who will tell me they don't agree and don't like the fundamentalist Sharia Islam in Nigeria, but they have been shut down because of Christian opposition. Because the Christians have openly opposed it. If they come out and speak, they are simply labeled as they are become Christians also. So it has sort of silenced them. So there's a kind of a paradox in which sometimes our reactions can cause a certain kind of reaction on the other side. And so Africa can provide that kind of environment, but it depends on how Christians in Africa engage in this debate.
Yeah, I think that we need to remember that. I say we need to remember that, and you mentioned it already, that that many of those theories and those new interpretations, have their sources in African context themselves, with Farid Isaac or Mohamed Mahmoud Taha. They all and Naim, with the Sudanese, they all nurtured, their desire for a more just religion from their own African context. And I think, as you mentioned, it's very important for us as Christians to support them instead of kind of pointing a finger at them and saying that is not Islam, and therefore we are playing in the hands of the fundamentalists when you do that, or the Islamists. So I think that is something that we really need to reflect upon. How can we be a conduit for progress as well in this issue? We need to remember what is said in Micah. What is that? 6:8. Yes, we have shown you, O men, what you should do. That you love justice, walk humbly, act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And that is what those progressive Muslims are trying to do, in a sense. Of course, they are still Muslims because their fundamental doctrines are not changed. And talking about what kind of engagement should we have with them, in one way, we need to support their endeavor to construct a more human future for Islam, but at the same time, we need to remember too that they still need the message of salvation. They still need Jesus.
Praise the Lord. Have you finished? Yeah, actually, you've done very well. We promised ourselves 15 minutes. Oh, she has not answered the question.
Oh yes, there were two questions. One is about how do they respond to the contradictions that are not found in post-apartheid South Africa. Actually, Farid Isaac is very, very sad about it, and he has written about it. He has said that he has really is very disappointed that the people who were part of the struggles are now become part of the corrupt, oppressive government. But at the same time, he's saying also that doesn't mean that we need to stop criticizing those whom we have put in power. So now he's turning his pen against the members of the ANC.
Poor man.
Yeah. And you were saying
percentage.
The percentage.
And actually, whether this is Islam now we see growing
In Africa.
In the West.
not Africa.
Like these past few years, there have been many books published by progressive Muslims, but most of those progressive Muslims now are professors in American universities. So while their number is growing, their voices are coming from the West. I don't know of any recent voice of progressive Islam in Africa, but I must say too that in the context of South Africa, we still have Said al-Sheikh, or Tayob at the University of Cape Town, who are still holding the torch, for progressive Islam in Africa. Unfortunately, I'm more aware of what is happening in the South African context. I don't know about what is happening in other African countries.
In terms of percentages, I think it's about the ideas, not numbers.
Yes.
And for them, this is an ideological battle. It's a hermeneutical exegesis problem that they want to take on. So they are hoping that their ideas will infiltrate and will get imbibed by younger Muslims. Because Osama bin Laden, that's what they do. They write a lot of poisonous material, and they have to counter that with the different type of material, and that's what they are trying to spread their word. But it's not huge numbers, but the influence can be very effective in the years to come. As to the Islam spreading in the West, it has to do more with Sufi Islam. It's a very kind of a neo-Sufism, if you like, in the West. Western people are looking for different spiritualities. So Sufism is like another Buddhism or Hinduism. That they tap into the supermarket of religion.
And it's amazing, it's interesting to note as well that those people who are converting to Islam, who are going through into Islam through the Sufi door are mostly Western women.
Yeah, Western women.
Yes. I just wanted to say that, that if you want to have a look at some of the hermeneutical strategies, that progressive Muslims are using to reinterpret the Sharia, the Hadith literature, and the Quran, please get the PowerPoint presentation from Manfred, because you're not going to see that in my paper. Thank you.
You don't answer my...
sorry.
Talking about tolerance and engagement. And
yeah, and I think we kind of touched on that, when you said that we can't just tolerate, we need to have engagement with them, especially on the level of human rights.
The concept of tolerance is not really positive.
Yeah. You remember what Safi said about tolerance? How far can we tolerate somebody? We need to engage them on the, on the level of their humanity. So I think that's something that we need to look at as well and reflect upon as Christians. Do we just tolerate, or do we really love?
Well, there was a time when tolerance was considered a very noble idea. And now we realize that it can mean different things. It can mean the way I tolerate mistakes with my neighbor, and I do without him if I can. Thank you very much, Nicole. You deserve not only the bottle of water you are drinking, but also the applause of the audience. Somebody mentioned Islam is waiting for its own reformation. It's a two-edged statement. Let's simply say Islam is something, a historical watershed that will permit it to renew itself in line with the development we want today. People are doing it on their own individually, but you see the whole problem of Roundup. I am chairman of this occasion. The whole problem of Islam not having structures that can actually carry out such things. That's something we must have to face. But we should forget that we Christians, there was a time when we were just doing like the Muslims are doing now. And I always remind my Muslim brothers that, look, I quite understand what you are saying. My church was that way before. And meanwhile, we have believed that God is telling us ever new things. Blanket condemnation of all Muslims plays into the hands of the fundamentalists. I think that is certainly the case. Now, John, I'm sure you know that when we are trying to not only dialogue but work together with Muslims, we cannot wait until all of them have become progressive Muslims before you start acting. You just have to identify those who are ready to work with you and start somewhere. Because after all, we know too that not every Christian is progressive. It's not as if everything is nice and united in Christian fold. I think this courage to make hands with whoever is ready and avoid blanket condemnations of anybody or any group. Thank you very much, Nicole.